Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode on Procurement Fraud Analytics. If you remember, we started this series over 2-3 weeks back where we are going through a sample data set and using Excel we are trying to do different use cases of spend analysis. We have done cost saving opportunity exploration. We have also done some suspicious transaction analysis in our last episode. And in this episode, I'm going to continue to focus on the suspicious transaction and dive into a new use case, which I'm calling as Unit Price Deviations, or in simple terms, poor sourcing decisions. So let's jump right into the execution mode. Alright, so you're able to see what we have done last time, which is PO released on same day with same supplier, same product, having the same unit price. And in this version, I'm going to focus on, as I said, on unit price deviation. What do I mean by that? I think what I want to focus on this time around is, for the same product, I would try to find out cases where there is a higher unit price for the recent POs. Recent POs meaning if the unit price has increased from previous year to this year, along with increase in quantity. Now hear me out on this one. So what basically I'm saying is, let's say there's a product A, alright, so for the same product, and there could be many suppliers. I can have supplier A, supplier B, and supplier C. Now what I'm going to find out, what's the, let's say, unit price here. Now unit price could be 100, 200, 300. Actually, unit prices I want to compare for 2 years. Now this could be 2021 and let's say this could be 2022. Alright, and let's say this is still 100, this is 150, and this is 450 for an example. Also, when I mentioned increase in quantity, that's the view I also want to have. Let's say the quantity that we have purchased for this product from these supplier A, it's too far I guess. Alright, now it's better. So let's say in 2021, what was the view or what was the quantity? Let's say this was 90, this was 80, this was 100, and then suddenly this was 80, this was 60, but this was 200. Alright, too many numbers. Let me simplify the storyline for you. The cases that we are going to focus on is primarily starting with supplier C here. So we will question, okay, the price has gone up, why is it like that? And as well as the quantity has gone up. Okay, so the price has increased and the supplier share for the most expensive supplier has also increased. So these are the cases that we are going to find out today. And again, it's very simple, but you hardly see any solution in the market that can give you this analysis upfront. And this is where the domain knowledge comes in. Okay, so let's jump right into our data set. As you know, we are working with this raw data set. And as always, I'm going to insert a pivot table along with the data model. Click OK. And there you go, we have a pivot table. I'm going to rename this as my unit price deviation table. Now there's a couple of things that we have to do to organize our data. Alright, so first and foremost, I'm going to select my product name and put it into a master filter. Remember, we are looking for, if I can go back to our logic, let me pull this thing in. So we are looking for same product. That's why I'm putting the product name as a master filter, so that I can filter on product A, product B, product C. Alright, after this I want my supplier names. So who is supplying me this particular product? I think I will keep it in rows. Yes, that's good. And let me work with an example. Let's say I'm working for product C. So these are the suppliers that are supplying me for this particular product. I also want the PO date, PO year, for example, to make it easy. Okay, so now our product. So now what we have done is, it's simple. So product C being supplied by these many vendors for these 2 years. All I need now is unit prices and quantity. Now quantity is easy. I can just drag and drop here. So now basically what I'm seeing here, and I can zoom it in for you guys. I will also move myself to the left side so you can see how am I working with this. Now these are the sum of the quantities, so okay with that. Now I want a unit price comparison here. Now thing with unit prices, let's go to our raw data set. We have a unit price column. Okay, now the unit price thing is, if I put unit price here just like that, and if I do average, although I will be able to get unit prices, but it's not weighted average, and I want to use weighted average because that's more accurate. Okay, we might have to do something else. So let me divide this into 2 portions. This is probably an easier approach. Let me show you, continue with the easier approach. And towards the second half of this video, when we are done with this easy analysis, I will redo this table and I will show you how to replace average unit price by the weighted average price. Okay, I like to keep things simple here. So let me reduce or get rid of the decimals. Okay, and then let's reduce the column width as well. Okay, done. Okay, now let's see what we are working with. Okay, that's fine. Alright, and as I said, I would like to organize by going to design, pivot table analyze, merge. Done. Now I will save this file. So basically what I'm looking at now is quantity and unit price. So let me compare unit price versus unit price, or basically like this. Yes, and then let me put unit price prior to the quantity. Okay, now I will go back to the approach, which is higher unit price for the recent POs, or basically I'm going to find out which supplier has increased my unit price, and if he has increased the unit price, whether he got more business in terms of more quantities. So if we compare, and I will just keep it very simple, yes, the price has increased, so all the price decrements, okay, so all these are higher, so all these cases are lower. Okay, and now I'm going to compare the quantity. So if you see the supplier C, in fact, yeah, so the quantity increased here, all right, and the quantity also increased here, and this is very similar, this case is very similar to what we were discussing here. Okay, now before classifying this as poor sourcing decision, always remember that spend analysis starts as a desktop exercise, and it's very critical for procurement excellence managers to interact with the category manager wherever it is possible to really find out the logical reason why it happened. Now let me share a bit of my experience where you can see this as a regular behavior. Okay, the 2 cases where despite the price increase the volume is also higher could be one where you are dealing with raw material commodities, right? And these are commodities such as wheat, palm oil, natural rubber, carbon black, zinc, etc. etc. If you're a raw material buyer, you have to secure the supply more than you have to optimize the cost. Of course, cost optimization will be there. Under that scenario, if your buying conditions are volatile and linked with commodity index exchanges, I think this behavior would be normal. But again, you need to find out by talking to the relevant category manager. The second scenario to really justify this case would be low buying power, meaning there is not enough volume available with these suppliers, hence you don't have any other alternate to go to. Under that scenario also, I think these justifications would be acceptable. But as I said before, you have to really confirm with the buyer. However, so I will term these as exceptions. Okay, exceptions. However, if this product C is your standardized commodity category, IT hardware, some other office stationery, or any indirect spend for that matter, this behavior is questionable. Okay. Now, I'm not going into the other aspects such as you should consolidate these suppliers, etc., etc. We have already done that exercise as part 1 of this analysis. If you are watching this video for the first time, take a pause and go back to my previous videos to really find out how have we done the analysis for cost consolidation. Now on this, it's now that we have discovered these two poor sourcing decisions or unit price deviations, all we need to do is basically do a simulation. So for example, if technically you can award the business of this increased quantity to supplier C, you can calculate the difference. Alright, so in my case, what I would recommend, if supplier D increased the prices by this much, from 71 to 87, so why I was not giving more business to my supplier C as well. Okay, so look things in totality. So by not giving the additional volume, that is the additional volume for this year, let me just do it here. So the additional volume that I gave to supplier D despite the cost increase. So this is my unit price increase for supplier D, and this is the additional volume or additional quantity that the buyer awarded, which is this minus this, right? And now the dollar value impact of this poor sourcing decision is quite easy to calculate. I will divide it by 6, so roughly 2 million. Okay, so this 2 million is a direct result of a poor source allocation. Okay, to take this argument further, you can also question why we are continuing. So although these suppliers have decreased prices, why we are still continuing to award the quantities, and why we cannot give it to supplier C again. Make sure you are talking practical things with the category manager. Theoretically, you can give everything to supplier C, but you have to consider lead times, you have to consider single source situation. So again, have a chat, but the more you go into these sort of aspects, it becomes really effective from spend analysis perspective. For this time around, I'm going to log this as one opportunity that we have discovered. So that is 2 million. So the number of cases so far I have considered 1, and the dollar value for this is, let's say, 2 million. Okay. Now it's quite simple. You can do it for other categories as well. For example, product B, you can have get rid of the yellow cells, and basically you can repeat this exercise by comparing the unit price evolution. Now in this case it's 4 years, so I can get rid of the last 2 years, and then this is a good behavior because you see this with the price increase, the volume was actually reduced, and the cheapest vendor in this is these two guys, and the volume is fairly split. So no red flags here. In then it's product C, where again, if you see the cheapest vendor is this particular guy, and from product quantity perspective is getting the so-called maximum. That's okay, but I'm still not okay with this sourcing decision, and it's very similar to the case that we just discovered. So again, what's the increase in unit price, what's the increase in quantity, and what's the impact? You can calculate like we did in previous exercise. So 16 is the impact. The total increase is about 125,000, and the dollar impact I think is roughly another 2 million. So this is another one more case of a poor sourcing decision. So you can replicate this, become 1 plus 1 2 cases, and this is now 2 plus 2 4 million in unit price deviations. Okay, and that's pretty much it, folks. This approach is scalable because either you can go one by one, and let's try to see if we can actually pull it down. Yeah. So you have product A, product B, product C, and if you have many products, what you can do, now we are moving into the scalable portion of it. You can actually copy this table. Let's say I add a new sheet here, and it's easy. So the first step I'm going to do is to calculate percentage change. So there's a percentage change in the unit price, and it's fairly simple. So this minus this, let's say the percentage change is 5%. Now you can have thresholds, etc. I think we can do it later. And then similarly, I can calculate the percentage change in quantity. And it's exactly the same stuff here as that. Hold on, will this approach work? Because I'm not actually comparing these three. I'm just comparing the unit price increment decrements. Okay, because I want to find out the minimum, and the way to find out minimum in this case would be if I, let's say, insert a column called minimum here, and now I will have to, for this case it's actually guys, I have a tendency to go silent, so please pardon me. It's quite a work to concentrate and talk together. Not really good at it, but I hope you get the idea that I'm trying to do here. I'm actually calculating the minimum unit price, which is the latest minimum unit price. Okay. And then now, with this latest minimum unit price, you can easily, let's say, calculate the difference between the deltas. So you can also do it this way. The delta here would be this unit price minus the minimum unit price. Okay. Times the quantity that you didn't award, etc. So what basically I've done is I've taken the minimum unit price, which is 58 here, and then I multiplied the price differential with the quantity that was awarded. So that means and divide by power 10 raised to 6 is basically to convert this into million. So basically what we are doing here is by not awarding to the cheapest vendor, how much extra delta you have spent. So in this case it's 2 million. For product C, you would see the biggest deviation in terms of 13 million. So this is a real poor job and the other rest of the components are 2 million, 2 million, 2 million. So now let me get rid of the stuff. So this way you can compile your list of outliers to really understand where are the big deviations coming from. In some cases you can accept 2 million, 3 million depending upon how much exactly your purchasing volume is, but 13 million can stand out. So this way you can then filter. I think I would like to keep approach simple here, but I hope you get the idea of unit price deviation. Before I conclude this video, I promised you that I will show you another way of calculating the unit prices. Let me conclude that really quickly. So instead of just taking the simple average, we can actually, so now what I will do is, because I need to calculate a formula field, I will not use the data model because data model doesn't allow you to calculate formula fields. I will deselect it, click OK, and then basically replicate the same structure, which is having the product name at the top, if I'm not wrong. So product name, yeah, and then underneath the suppliers, that's fine. And then I can have years here, and now I need to have weighted average price. So what I can do is, I think insert, so pivot table analyze, field saving, calculate field, and here what I can do is weighted average price, and this would be your PO value. I think it comes here, PO value divided by quantity. That's pretty much it, folks. Done. So now I have a weighted average price. I like to keep it safe, so I will now also unit price column, which is weighted. It's more accurate. That's what I also like to use. In some of the cases it's 0 because you don't have the data. Anyway, I'm focusing on only 2021 and 2022. So now I have weighted average unit prices as we did last time. You can bring in the quantities to keep things organized. This is how I do stuff, and then swap because I want to compare unit prices with the quantity column. And then after this is basically the same exercise. You're questioning, for example, the price increase and the quantity increases, which I think we have done already. Let's see if I can find one example, which is like here. So you're looking for price increase and quantity increase. Similarly, one more case if I can find. Price increase and quantity increase. Now this observation may not tally with what we did earlier because it was simple. This is average, but the approach would remain same. Alright, let me not waste more time on it, but you get the idea. So to consolidate, in this episode we did two sorts of analysis. One where we are comparing 2021 with 2022 but for the same supplier, and we are questioning why we are buying more, why we are not giving to a cheaper vendor. Alright, and to take this analysis further, what we also did is for each category, who is the cheapest vendor. So for example, for product C, the cheapest vendor was supplier C, and by not awarding to the cheapest vendor, which is the minimum amount, how much extra purchasing volume or deltas, how much purchasing value has been leaked or given to the other suppliers. For example, by not awarding to supplier C, the extra money we spent with supplier D is about 13 million. And these are some of the questions that every procurement excellence manager should do on regular basis. There are many Python scripts that can help you automate this process. I think I will do one session maybe sometime in a couple of weeks or months from now where we will try to automate this exercise. I'm a firm believer that you don't need fancy tools to do this analysis, yet by doing simple analysis in Excel and asking the right question, you can be much more effective. My name is Gaurav, and thank you for watching this video. As you are aware, this whole initiative is part of my initiative called Super Negotiate. Under the initiative of Super Negotiate, I'm teaching and sharing my knowledge on negotiation, spend analysis, how to use Python machine learning in procurement, and make the lives of category manager much more data driven. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.